Hey guys, so we're going to make the lantern today, and you should be able to see this in your canvas. If you go to your canvas under files and under modeling practice reference images, you're going to want to download this Sephiroth Art ISO Lantern JPEG file. So once you have that downloaded, you're just going to open it up, and this is what it should look like. Okay, and so this is what we're going to make tonight. And when we make it, we're going to use a lot of the same methods that we've been using in class. And so I'll walk you through it, and by the end we should have a nice looking lantern. Alright, so you can go ahead and open up your Maxine just like this. You should have 4 different views open. You can, if you like, you can just maximize one view, and you can do that by clicking right over here on your bottom right hand corner, and that'll maximize your view. You'll see it, it'll say maximize viewport when you hover over it. If you like staying in the 4 viewports, that's fine too. I personally like to stay in the perspective viewport, so whenever you click, it'll highlight which view you're in, but we're just going to stay in this viewport. Okay, so we're in our Maxine, and we're going to start making the base, right? We're going to make this piece right here. So how we're going to do that is we're going to start with a cylinder. And so whenever you are ready to make your cylinder, you're going to click over here on your Create tab, and you're going to click that, and you're going to see cylinder right here. So click cylinder, and when it's highlighted, that means it's ready to be created. So once you click on cylinder, you come into your grid area, and you're just going to left click, drag. You're still holding left click, and you're going to let go of left click, and now you're just going to pull up. Right, let's do that again. You're going to left click to highlight or to select cylinder, come over to your grid area, left click, drag. You're still holding left click. You're going to let go of left click. You're going to drag up, and then you're going to left click again to finish it. And see, my cursor is still ready to draw another cylinder. You're just going to want to right click, and now we're not going to make another cylinder, because this is what's going to happen whenever you pull it out, and you're like, okay, my cylinder's made, and then when you click again, you're going to start to make another cylinder. So what you want to do is you're just going to left click, drag, left click again, and you're done. Again, left click, drag, let go of left click, and then you're going to click left click again, and then to not make another cylinder, you're going to right click. There we go. Okay, so the next step is we're going to make an editable poly, and we're going to do that by right clicking, and this drop down menu is going to come on, and we're going to go all the way down to convert to and editable poly. So again, we're going to right click, and this box is going to come up, and then you're going to want to convert to editable poly. And when you do that, you see it generated our selection modes and all of these different buttons that we can click on. So we're going to want to delete the bottom of this base, right? And because it's not going to be seen, right? So if we want to rotate around our model, we hold the Alt button on our keyboard and middle mouse click. So you hold Alt, and you see my cursor changed. You hold Alt and then middle mouse click, and then you just move your mouse around while holding Alt and middle mouse click. So again, that's Alt, middle mouse click to rotate. So we want to delete this face down here because we don't need it. So you can go to face mode or polygon mode, or you can click on polygon mode, or you can hit 4 on your keyboard and that'll select polygon mode. If not, if it doesn't work on your keyboard, then you can just come over here and click polygon. So click polygon, you'll know when it's selected, when it's highlighted blue. You click on that bottom polygon and you're going to hit delete. So that should delete that polygon. Again, you're going to click on polygon mode, you're going to click that bottom polygon and you're going to hit delete. Alt middle mouse click to rotate back around. Okay. So now we have this shape just without the bottom. So we want to start to make the base that extrudes a bit up, right? It's flat, so we want to make that base go up a little bit, but before we do that, you can tell right here in the reference image that it kind of tapers in some. And so how we fix that is we're just going to go to our scale tool, which is the hotkey for that is R, or you can come up to here where it says select and non-uniform scale, because you have your select tool right here, you have your move tool, your rotate, and your scale tool, but you can just hit R. So you hit R and then your scale tool pops up. So the next thing you want to do is you want to highlight in your scale tool this middle portion right here and just scale this down just a little bit. So you're going to left click and scale it down just like that. Now with this scaled, you're going to want to go over to your panel over here and click the box next to insert, which is going to be the insert settings. So click this box right here. You can see this is going to give us another little circle, and we're just going to come right here to the insert amount and we're just going to drag this up. So what we're trying to do is we're trying to make this portion right here, this little base. So that looks about good. You just eyeball it. Okay. So once I just Control Z, once you have a spot that you feel comfortable, you just hit the check mark right here. So now we're ready to extrude. So you come over to the extrude settings box right here and you're going to click that. And now we have this polygon extruded up. So this right here sets the height. So you can go in, you can go out. We're just gonna set it to a decent height. This is right about there. And you're gonna hit your check mark. Okay. So we don't need this face right here. So we can go ahead and just delete that face. But what we do need to do is we need to make it kind of curves right here. And so we're going to do the same thing. And we can do that by going into our edge mode right here, or you can hit 2 on your keyboard to go to edge mode. You're going to click this edge right here. You can hit Q to go to your selection mode, or you can just come up to this box and click your selection mode so you don't scale anything by accident. click this edge right here, left click this edge, and then this button right here, ring, you're just going to click on that. And what that's going to do is it's going to select all of these edges along this axis right here. So hit ring, and now we have a ring of edges. After that, you're going to go over to connect the box setting right here and click that. Now that just gave us a whole new edge, and we're going to use that to make that curve. And so you don't have to mess with anything here, we just want one edge, one segment. So hit the check mark, and now what we're going to do is we're going to go to our scale tool right here, and we're just going to scale it down. So with your scale tool, your scale gizmo is going to come up, and you're going to want to get right in the center of that scale tool, left click, and then just drag. And so it should look something like this. Okay. So right now I'm in edge faces, which is why I can see all of my edges. If you want to see your edges as well, you can just hit F4 on your keyboard, and that'll toggle it on and off. If F4 doesn't work on your keyboard, you can click on this right here, this default shading, and you can go to edge faces right here. It helps out a lot when you want to manipulate your edges. Okay, so I'm not satisfied with this yet. I want a little bit more of a defined curve. So I'm going to double click on this edge, left double click. I'm going to hit Q so I don't scale anything. Q is my selection tool. And okay, now with this edge selected, I'm going to go over to my chamfer tool, and this is going to give me about 2 more segments, and it's going to smooth this curve out a bit. So click the box, the settings box next to chamfer, and you see it's going to give us a whole bunch of different drop down settings, right? So this top setting right here, you're going to want to click on that, and you're going to want to hit try. So all of them do a bit of a different type of chamfer. We want to use the try chamfer right now. So we changed it to try. This is the amount, this is the chamfer amount, right? So probably right about there. And this is how many segments you want. So the more segments, the smoother the curve. We want just one more segment. So it should be 2 segments right here. The rest of this we don't really have to mess with. So again, it's try. This is your amount. And then 2 edge segments. And hit the check mark. So I'm going to turn off edge selection, and I'm going to hit F4 just to kind of get a look at it. So yeah, we got something close. So ours is a little bit thicker, so we want to probably bring that down just a bit so that it looks closer to the reference image, and we're going to do that right now. So we're going to go to our vertex selections. You can click on vertex right here, or you can hit 1 and that'll turn on your vertex selection. So whenever you want to marquee select, that's a left click and drag like this. This is going to select everything in that window, right? So whatever you marquee select, you can marquee select it like this, and you're going to select all of those vertices in that window. So we want to select all of the vertices besides these bottom vertices. So we can do that by marquee selecting, but if I marquee select in perspective view, sometimes you're going to get vertices that you don't want. Like these, we don't want these down here. So what you can do is you can hit F for front view. Now we're in front view. I just hit F for front view. Before I was in perspective. You can just hit F for front and then Z for zoom, and that'll zoom in on your object. So again, I was in perspective. You can hit F for front and then Z for zoom, right? Those are your hotkeys. F4 to turn on your edges, or you can go over here and go to edge faces, click on vertex, and now we're going to just left click and drag to get those vertexes. So left click, drag, and let go. And now we have all the vertices we want. So you can hit P for perspective, hold Alt, middle mouse click, and you can rotate and see. You're going to get any of those bottom vertices, which is what we want. So we're going to move it down by using our move tool. So you can hit W for move, or you can come up here to select and move and just click that. Now we have our move tool selected. So this blue axis is what we want to use. So this is our Z axis. Z axis is everything going in this direction. Everything going in this direction is our X, and everything in this direction is our Y. So Z axis is your third dimension. Everything else in 2D is used with the X and the Y axis. Your Z axis is where our three-dimensional comes in. That's our depth. Right? So we want to highlight this Z right here. All we want to see is just this line and this Z highlighted. You don't want to see this highlighted, or this highlighted, or this highlighted, or this highlighted. We just want to see just this Z highlighted. And that lets us know that we're just going to move in this axis only. So you click right here on your move tool, and we're just going to pull it down just a bit. Like that. And that's a bit better. Yeah. Okay. Now we want to make this little bowl shaped part right here, and I'm going to show you how to do that. So we want to select all of these edges right here, and so we could go to edge mode, select edges, and then we can just double click on these edges, and that'll select all the edges. Or you can click on one edge and you can hit loop, or you can go to borders, click on borders. Borders is selected now, and then you can just click once and it'll select the entire border. So there's three ways that you can select an open face like this, or this edge loop. You can double click on your edge. You can click one edge and hit loop, or you can just go to borders and you can just click. So Now that we have our edge selected, what we want to do is make that bowl shape. And how we're going to do that is using our shift button to create edges or new faces by extruding out these edges. So we're not going to use the extrude tool. And how this works is it's going to create a new set of edges once I click and drag. So I'll show you as a quick example. So with this edge loop selected, I'm going to hold down my shift button. I'm going to click on this z-axis, and I'm going to pull it up. And this just made a whole new set of faces. Again, I was just holding shift, left click on my z-axis, and just drag it up. So that's what essentially we're going to do to make this bowl. It works in all axes as well, but you see you kind of get some weird stuff. Right. We're going to do, we're not going to use the move tool. Well, we are going to use the move tool, but we're going to use the scale tool primarily for this part. So we're going to hit R to go to scale, and now we're going to hold shift, and we want to be in the center of this scale tool. You're going to want to click, left click, and just drag your mouse out, and so it should look like this. You can let go of shift, you can let go left click, and so now you have these set of faces that were just made. Okay, now we want to move these up. So with these edges still selected, if you deselected it, that's fine, you can just double click and you have those edges selected again. Go to your z-axis and just move it up a little bit like this. Again, you have this selected. You can just move this up like that. And we're gonna go back to our scale tool, and we're going to do the same thing again. Hold shift, go to the center of your scale tool where the center is highlighted, left click, and drag out again. Now we're going to go to our move tool, W, and just bring this up like that. Just like that. So I want this to bulge out just a little bit. So you see in the reference here, it bulges just a bit, and you're going to see why. We're going to bring it out just a bit. So you can double click while you have edge mode selected, double click on this edge, and then you're going to go back to your scale tool, R, or up here, select it, go to the center of your scale, which means it's going to scale it in all directions, X, Y, and Z, uniformly. So you're just going to scale it out just like that. Okay, perfect. So you should have something like this. Okay. Alright, now with this edge selected, we're going to chamfer it. So make sure that you have this edge selected all the way around. You can go over to this chamfer box setting right here, this little box right next to the word chamfer. You're going to click, left click on it, and you see it's going to smooth that out. Just perfect. That's what we need. So remember, we're in try. This is the amount, so you can play with that amount, and we want 2 segments, not 1, 2. If you want 3, that's fine. I'm going to stick with 2. Now remember, whenever we're building our 3D models, we're trying to be as optimized as possible. And what I mean by that is that we don't want to overuse our polygons by adding too many. And the reason that being is you want to have your 3D model is optimized and as clean as possible. All the detail that is going to be used, for example, for this, all of these like divots right here, all of these little things like that will be in your high poly mesh. Right now we're building our low poly mesh, and so later in the semester we're going to learn how to build a high poly mesh as well. But for now we're just going to build our low poly mesh. Okay, so now we have like this cup shape, and so we have this made, we have this made, and now we have this bowl shape made. Now we got to get to the rest of this up here, and I'm going to show you how to do that. Okay, so there's a little bit of thickness right here, some thickness to hold the glass in the lantern. So we're going to make that thickness, and so we're going to click on borders, and we're going to click on this border right here. We're going to go back to our scale tool, and we're going to hold shift. I'm just going to zoom in just a little bit. And I'm going to hold shift, and I'm just going to go to the center of my scale tool right here, and I'm just going to pull it in, left click, and just pull that in just a little bit, like that. Again, have my border selected, hold shift with my scale tool selected, hold shift, left click on the center, and just drag your mouse just a bit, just so we can get that thickness. Let go of shift, let go of left mouse click, and then you have your thickness. Alright, so now we're going to want to get this part of the lantern, you know, this main part right here. So we're just going to drag up a whole new set of edges. So we're going to go to our move tool, or W, with border still selected. With this border still selected, we're going to hold shift, left click on the Z axis, because we want to go on the Z axis up, and we're just going to left click and drag it up. Just like that. Again, border, you have this border selected, you have your move tool selected, ready to go. Highlight that Z axis, hold down shift, left click, drag up. Let go of shift, let go of left click. Okay. So now we're gonna make the top, and we're going to come back to the center part in a minute. So we're going to do the same thing that we did down here to make the thickness, except we're going to go out instead of in. So with this border still selected, we're going to hit R for our scale tool, go to the center of your scale, hold shift, left click, drag, and you're just going to drag it out just like that. Let go of shift, let go of left click, and we're just going to do this a couple different times. So hit W for move, with this border still selected, hold shift, left click, drag up, let go of left click, let go of shift, go back to your scale tool, you hit R, go to the center of your scale tool, it's going to scale everything uniformly, so that's your X, Y, and Z axis. It's going to scale. We're going to want to scale that inwards. So hold shift, hold left click, center of your scale tool, pull it in. Let go of shift, let go your left click, hit W, border still selected, hold shift, click on this Z axis again, and we're going to go up. Let go left click, let go of shift. Gonna hit R for scale. I'm gonna scale this in. Let go left click, let go of shift. Hit W, border still selected. Hold shift, left click on the Z axis, pull it up, let go of shift, let go left click, and let's just scale it in just a bit, like that. Okay, so you just made this. Pretty fast and pretty simple. So we need to get the ball at the top, right? So I'm going to show you how to do this. So my cylinder was 18 edges around. Okay, I know that because I can click on edges. I can double click on these edges, and so I have all of my edges selected, or I can just hit borders. So I have all these edges selected, and right here it tells me the number of edges that are selected. So I have 18 edges selected. So that means that I have 18. 1, 2, 3, 4. All the way around I have 18. So 18 edges selected. So I want to make this ball at the top, right here. And I want that to connect with the rest of my lantern. And so I'm going to do that. I'm going to create a sphere. So we're going to go to our Create tab again, where we made our cylinder, and we're going to click Sphere. And so right here it's asking for my radius and how many segments I want on my sphere. So to kind of get an idea, just go ahead and left click, drag out your sphere, then right click to stop creating spheres, to end your sphere creation mode. And now if you look here, I went to my modified tab with all the settings here. So you can adjust your radius of your sphere up here. You could also adjust the amount of segments you want. The more segments, the smoother it is. The less segments, the not so smooth it is. So we want 18 segments because that's the same amount of edges I have here. That's the same amount of edges I want around on my sphere. Okay? Alright, let's make this gray. Okay. So I have 18 edges or segments and edges on this sphere around. I have 18 edges around for my cylinder. So we're going to move the sphere at the top of my cylinder. Okay. So my lantern is almost zeroed out. So that means it's almost at the very center of the grid. If you look, you see where these gray lines are, that's your grid. Where these black lines are, those are your main lines. And then the center of these lines is the center of the entire grid, which is, this is 0, 0, 0. This is the very center of your grid. We want our lantern to be at the center of our grid, and I'm going to show you why. So down here when you have your move tool selected, we want to move our lantern to the center of our grid. And so this is telling you where on the grid in each axis it's lying or it's being held. So on the x-axis, this is where it is. On the y-axis, this is where it is, and on the z-axis, this is where it is. And these three numbers are telling me where it is. These are the coordinates on my graph, or on my grid. So we want these to be 0. So you can just highlight this and hit 0. Same thing for this one. Same thing for this one. So now we're zeroed out. If your pivot is incorrect, if your pivot's in the center of your lantern and you zero it out, it'll probably do this. And that being, the reason why that happens is because wherever your pivot is on your model, that's where it's going to center to. It's taking the coordinates from that point of your model. But we want it to be at the base. This pivot is going to help us snap to the grid at 0, 0, 0 at the bottom and not the center. Later in the semester we'll get into what pivots can do and why they're important, but right now we're just going to take this pivot and put it on the bottom of this lantern. So remember, we have our Create tab here, we have our Modify tab here, and next to our Modify tab we have our Hierarchy tab. We click that Hierarchy tab and you're going to see all these different things in this drop down. What you want to do is click Effect Pivot Only. So you know this is highlighted. Now we can control where our pivot is. And so wherever our pivot is will be where our model will move according to that pivot. See that? But we want it to be down here. So we need to turn on our snaps because we want to snap our pivot to the bottom of our lantern. So we go up here to snaps. You can hit S to turn on your snaps, but first we got to see if our vertexes are selected on our snaps. So you right click on your snaps, this little button up here, and this little drop down window should come up. So I have my vertexes already selected. If you don't, yours will look like this. So you just go and you select vertex and then you can X out. So now we're going to snap to our vertexes, and you know when you can snap on vertexes when you see this little yellow cursor pop up. It's a little crosshair, a little yellow crosshair, and it's snapping on vertexes. And this is snapping on grid points because I have grid points also selected. So this is snapping on vertexes, this is snapping on grid points. Okay, so we want to take this pivot and snap it to the bottom. So remember, we're in our Hierarchy tab, 3 over from the Creation tab. Click Effect Pivot Only. Our pivot is activated because this is highlighted. We're going to take this pivot, we're going to drag it to the bottom. Oh, actually, we're going to hit Center to Object, so it's going to take this pivot, it's going to center it to the lantern. So now we know this is at the very, very center of our lantern. And we're going to bring this down. Sorry. Right click on your snaps again, go to Options, and then go to Enable Axis Constraints. This is going to ensure that it'll move only on the axis that we select and not move in both axes simultaneously. So this pivot is at the center, we're going to move it down to the bottom, and now it has snapped. It should snap to the vertexes at the bottom of your lantern. So we know this is at the center bottom of your lantern. Okay? Now we can zero this out again. So go 0, 0. Okay. Now that this is zeroed out, we're going to do the same thing with this one. Let's affect the pivot. This is already at the center of the sphere. So we're going to click Affect Pivot Only. We're going to take this pivot and put it at the bottom of this sphere. And the reason why we're doing this is we're trying to align this sphere to the top part of our lantern. So we're just going to zero this out, just like that. I just right clicked on these and they just automatically zero. I right clicked on the little arrows down here. If you right click it, it'll zero it out automatically. So I right clicked on that, it zeroed out. We're just going to pull it up and we're going to snap it to these vertices on the top right here. So obviously this is way big. So what we want to do is we're going to scale this down. Hit your scale tool and just scale it down some, and it's going to scale it, you see, from this pivot point. So it's scaling from the bottom. So we want something like this, just like that. Okay, perfect. So we don't want this hole here. We want to make sure that these two things connect. And so what we're going to do is we're going to make sure our sphere is editable poly. So we're going to right click, convert to editable poly, go to your polygon